We are so grateful to be in community with all of you today. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Erica Williams. I am with Bloomberg Philanthropies Greenwood Initiative. The Bloomberg Philanthropies Greenwood Initiative is focused on accelerating the pace of wealth accumulation for Black families, while at the same time addressing policies and practices that extract wealth from communities and institutions. We are excited about today's webinar and excited about this partnership that I'm going to be introducing you to momentarily. As you all know, having reliable and accessible data is a powerful tool for improving outcomes for children and families. Yet, reliable data about the socioeconomic, geographic, and demographic contours of communities of color remain elusive. Two innovative data platforms have emerged to address this issue. The Black Wealth Data Center, launched in 2022, and the Latino Data Hub, launched in October 2023. Bloomberg Philanthropies launched the Black Wealth Data Center to help address the problem of insufficient and inaccessible data on the topic of Black wealth. The Latino Data Hub, developed by the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Institute, is a publicly accessible platform available in English and Spanish. It disaggregates over 130 data indicators by Latino subgroup, gender, language, and other vital socioeconomic variables covering 10 different issue areas. Though focused on different demographic groups, both platforms share the same goal: to provide the public, private, philanthropic, and nonprofit sector leaders with actionable data for policymaking and investment decisions. The goals of our partnership are to work together for the collection and presentation of better data to inform equitable practice and policymaking. This webinar marks the launch of our collaboration. Joining me today are Ji Zhang, Senior Research and Analyst at the UCLA Latino Policy and Politics Institute and Manager of the Latino Data Hub, Jay Henderson of the Black Wealth Data Center, Director of Product, Rodrigo Dominguez, Director of the Latino Data Hub, and Harsha Malajosiala, Director of Data. Today, we will do a short demonstration of the capabilities of both data platforms with G and J. Then we will have a moderated discussion about the challenges, successes, and lessons learned by both platforms with Rodrigo and Harsha. There will be a Q&A at the end, so please use the Q&A function in your Zoom to type in any questions that may come to you. Now, I have the pleasure of passing it on to G. G, please take it away.
Thank you, Erica, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. The Latino Data Hub was born to showcase the complexity of the Latino community. Latinos are often treated as the monoliths, obscuring the diversity and wide disparities. Using data from the U.S. Census Bureau, our platform provides on social determinants of well-being across 10 issue areas, ranging from income, housing, and employment to child well-being. In today's demonstration, I will showcase the key features of the data tool. If you have any questions during my demo, please send them in through the Q&A function, and we'll be happy to answer them during the discussion. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and turn off my camera for a smooth demonstration experience. So here, to get to the site, you can go to latinodatahub.org. When you first visit our site, you'll see a pop-up window where you can register to receive the latest news from us. We recommend you subscribing. Our homepage offers easy access to the data tool, our publications, technical documentations, and how to create a profile and switching to access the site in Spanish. You can explore the data in two ways. First, through the issue area menu that will take you to curated indicators related to different topics. Second is do the custom graphs feature, which enable access to all indicators and allow users to save and share data queries. We recommend you to create a profile to enjoy the full functionality of the tool. So I already have an account, so I'm going to log myself in. Here. Okay. So today, I will present the main functionalities of our tool through an example using hourly median wage. Low wages, a common struggle for Latino and Black workers, is a key barrier to wealth accumulation and a form of wealth extraction. So what is the current hourly wage profile for the US population? And are there any race and ethnic disparities? To answer this question, I'll click on Add the Graph and then start to make a data visualization. First, click on the drop-down menu here to access the full list of indicators. And in this case, you can type in wage to locate the indicator. Now you can see a bar chart that compares the median hourly wage for the total population and by racial and ethnic groups. When scrolling over the bar chart, you will find a sentence explaining each data point. As you can see, Latino, Black, and Native American workers have the lowest median hourly wage in the country, making between $17 to $18 per hour compared to $21 of the total US workers. You can click on the I button here to see the technical documentation for each indicator. So how does Latino wage vary by state? You can click on View Map and find a heated map of median hourly wage for Latinos by state and a bar chart that ranking the state with the US average. When you click on a particular state, let's say California, you can find California ranked the 11th highest in Latino median hourly wage in the country. To zoom in further on a particular state, you can click on the View Chart option. Our Customize feature allows users to disaggregate data further and identify disparities within the group. So for example, to compare differences in wage between sexes, you can select Include Sex Comparison. And now you can easily see disparities by sex for each group. The legend at the bottom indicates that the blue bars are for females and the tier bars are for males. The overall trend shows that females tend to have lower hourly wage than males. You can also select an additional breakdowns, for example, educational attainment, citizenship status, to explore whether this pay gap still holds after controlling for certain socioeconomic factors. Furthermore, at the Latino Data Hub, you can dip deeper into Latino subgroups. So back to Customize, you can choose a different comparison group. Let's see about Latino descent group. And then now you can see the same data point, but for Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, etc. You can add or remove groups, including specific Central American or South American descent groups to suit your needs. When you scroll down and click on the table, you'll access the data table. You can download the data here. You can also share the data visualization you just created by clicking on the share button here. You can customize further by selecting a state and a specific county. We don't offer the ability to combine counties right now to construct your own region, but we hope to introduce a feature next month as part of our annual data update. Finally, there is this advanced feature called Filter. Filter allows users to calculate the indicators only for a subset of the population. For time purposes, we won't be demonstrating this, but you can find tutorial videos on our homepage. If you ever run into any obstacles, you can contact us by clicking on the red question mark here to ask for support. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. This concludes my showcase of the tool. I will turn it over to Jay Henderson to demonstrate the Blackwell's Data Center tool. Thank you.
Thank you, G. And again, Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. So I'm happy to demonstrate the Black Wealth Data Centers platform, which is on a mission to really empower decision makers and practitioners with the actionable data that they need in order to advance Black wealth equity, but also holistically racial wealth equity as well. So jumping straight into the platform, I will also turn off my camera to make a smoother experience. So when you come to the Black Wealth Centers platform, you'll notice a few different key areas. But first, I want to draw your attention to the fact that we call it the Racial Wealth Equity Database. So our platform is powered by this Racial Wealth Equity Database because we understand that while our particular lens and focus is on Black, a lot of the data is further disaggregated by additional races as well. And so we wanted to make it as useful as possible for everyone who's advancing racial wealth equity. So there are a few primary places within the site. First, the Explore data is where you'll interact and engage with any of our data visualizations and the data tools that we have created. Currently, there are 22 different data sets that are powering the visualizations and tools that are accessible under our Explore data. Then you'll notice our resource library. The resource library is a collection of nearly 300 research papers, white papers, case studies, reports, and other tools that we aggregate all in one place to further the learning and kind of understanding and provide context of what else is happening within the ecosystem as it relates to racial wealth equity. Within the Connect page, you can actually find more information on the platform in terms of our partners, our events, and other ways to connect with us. And then finally, under About Us, you can learn more about the organization, the team, and our news section also houses our blog. However, today, since we're going to spend the majority of our time in the Explore data section, I'm going to bring you first to our assets and debt, just to give you a very quick overview of the types of visualizations that we make accessible. First, you'll notice that you can jump to different levels of data granularity. So we break this down from national to state and then local, because we understand that practitioners are oftentimes working at different levels. And so you may be looking for different levels of granularity within the data. So here, you'll notice that this chart is the median total net worth for households and is broken down by race or ethnicity. This is nationwide, so we always tell you the level of granularity, and it's for the years of 2007, to 2022. We allow you to filter on a number of different topics. So you can look at the net worth, you can look at assets, you can look at debt. All of these will actually change this time series chart. And if you hover along any of these lines, then you can actually see what the exact median net worth is for that particular demographic. And very similar to our friends at the Latino Data Hub, you can also filter by education and sex. And we also included these annotations on some of our charts. So here, for example, you can see that this was during the 2008 recession, and here we had the COVID-19 pandemic. So this is the general flow of all of the charts that we have within the Explore data topic pages. And I quickly showed you, but I will say our topics range from assets and debt, business ownership, home ownership, education, employment, and we also have population level data as well. So very quickly, I will show you our Black Wealth indicators. So when we launched the Black Wealth Data Center in the first iteration of the platform in 2022, in 2022, we had a lot of response from the community that this is great as far as the Explorer data topic pages, but it's a lot of data, and sometimes people really want to see, their local community. And so we developed this Black Wealth indicators to be a one-stop shop. So I like to say that it's essentially your command center. So if you're working at the local level, I'm in Washington, D.C. If you're working at the local level and you just want to see how a county is doing as it relates to several different wealth indicators, you would want to come to this particular tool. And so we give you the option to compare your district against national. And if you have a user profile or a user account, you can actually bring in a second county to do a county-to-county comparison as well. So at this time, we have 8 different indicators that we are providing access to, and they range from debt to income, bachelor's degree attainment, broadband internet access, which we know is critical, especially as it relates to education, and also FEMA data on expected annual loss per capita due to natural hazards and FDIC banking institutions. The other thing I'll quickly show here is that all of these charts are available for download. We created them so that you all could use them. So you can download the charts. We give little tool tips if you're ever looking for additional context, and you can save your work and download and share any of this information. The one thing that we do ask is that you cite the Black Wealth Data Center. Finally, I will show our global search feature. So if you come either back to the home page or to this little icon here, we have made it very, very easy for you to get to any visualization, any report, any piece of content that we have within the site through our global search. So if you type in either a topic or whatever's on your mind, we'll bring up search results, and that will be across the entire platform. Again, saving you time and also making it very, very easy to find the information that you're looking for. So with that, that's a very, very small kind of glimpse and window into what we have to offer at the Black Wealth Data Center. And some of the ways that people have been utilizing this data is through assessing community needs, designing programs that affect Black wealth, and even making investment decisions, very, very targeted investment decisions. So with that, there's a lot more that you can do with both of these tools, but for the sake of time, I will pass it back to Erica, and we will also make sure that you have our contact information in the chat. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you, G and J, for giving us a glimpse of the power of both data tools. Now I'd like to invite Rodrigo Dominguez Villegas, Director of the Latino Data Hub, and Harsha Malajosila, Data Director of the Black Wealth Data Center, to talk about some of the common successes, challenges, and plans and ambitions for both of these platforms. Yeah, I'll turn it over to you guys. I know that the Latino Data Hub and the Black Wealth Data Center, and I think we all can tell, have built very robust data collections to address racial equity. The Latino Data Hub for the Latino data community and the Black Wealth Data Center focused on Black wealth. Can you share what the response has been like so far about, or just in response to the platforms after they've launched? Harsha, why don't we start with you?
I'm going to quickly pass it to Jay, who's our product director.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to take this one. So, we launched the platform in 2022 in September, and it was a tremendously positive response. I think that the thing that we primarily heard was, I can't believe this didn't exist, and people wanted more. So they wanted more granularity, they wanted more tools. We had quite a few one-on-one calls, we had roundtables, we had webinars, and you could really tell the need for this type of tool and this type of data. So I think it's been tremendously, it's been a tremendous response, and it's been great to build with the community who are also on the ground and doing this work day by day.
Yeah, for us, it's been very similar to what Jay described. The Latino Data Hub just celebrated its 6th month since launch last week. And the past 6 weeks has just shown how needed the tool was. Incredible excitement, but also overwhelming response of people saying, can you come to our organization? Can you come to the White House Initiative on Hispanic to advance, educational equity for Hispanics, or the Smithsonian Institution? Can you come and teach our staff? How can we utilize your tools so that the Smithsonian museums can present Latinos in a much more diverse way and comprehensive way? So it's just, it's been an incredible, humbling, and overwhelming response, which just showcased the need for both platforms.
Great. I'm so glad to hear that you were welcomed with such a warm reception. So we've talked about the highs and what people really enjoyed about the platforms. Would you mind sharing with us some of the challenges you faced since launch? Rodrigo?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, because there was such a big need for this, one of the big challenges for our team has been to be able to train as many people as possible on how to use the platform and to increase our own capacity so that we can train and build models to train others on how to use it. And a second challenge, which I imagine is a shared challenge, is that we continue to we want to expand. So the Latino Data Hub has 10 different issue areas. We have a lot of breadth, but we still want to expand to provide more data. And one of the biggest challenges is that we continue to have difficulty finding data sources that actually capture the diversity of Latinos in granular enough way so that we can disaggregate the data the way that G showed you we can do in the platform right now. That's particularly challenging for some issue areas. Well, it ranges from like things like the legal justice system, where in some states, they don't even ask people whether they're Latino or not. So there's zero data about whether Latinos are impacted by the system in some states. But then there's other things like, trying to push the Census Bureau, for instance, for better collection of data. So those two are important challenges for us.
At the Blackwell Data Center, we are not a data collector ourselves, so we rely on the data that is published by many federal agencies. And I will speak broadly at a high level on the data challenges that we've been seeing since launch. They fall into three broad categories. The first one is around timeliness of data. Like 80% of the data sets that we rely on get updated once a year. There are like some data sets that get updated almost once in 3 years. Then there is reliability of the data. Like the Blackwell Data Center, along with the Latino Data Hub, we are not just interested in the top line statistic. We want data to be broken down by race and ethnicity. And as we look at data at a state level, at a county level, at a zip code level, at a census tract level, often we find that data is not reliable when it comes to estimates of Black households. That is what we've found. And finally, the third category is like missing data or no data. For example, the Blackwell Data Center has like a lot of questions around like how Black businesses are doing, but they're not publicly available data sets that can answer any of those questions.
Can I jump in with one last thing that has also been a challenge as well? I think one thing that we also have run into a few times has been it's an overwhelming response of, oh my God, this is so much data. And then I think there's a little shock. And it's like, well, what do I do with all of this data now that I have it? So I think that there has been a natural education component that has also kind of risen as a need. And that's something that we've also seen within the Black Wolf Data Center. So we're trying in a lot of different ways to make it even more accessible and easier to use the data because we're putting all this data into folks' hands, but I think we also have to give them a map of, okay, here's now how to take it forward.
Thank you for that ad, Jay, and thank you all for your responses. I want to kind of stay there for a second because Rodrigo also mentioned as one of the challenges is building capacity and having the capacity to train folks to use the data. And Jay, you're hitting on there's so much data. And I think sometimes in some fields, there's a natural intimidation about data. So what specifically are each of your platforms doing to kind of, again, create that accessibility to ease the pathway to people, for people engaging with the platforms, the trainings? Can each of you share more about what you're doing on the data capacity front? And maybe, Rodrigo, I'll start with you since you mentioned this issue first.
All right, so we're doing a series of things. One thing I want to highlight from the Latino Data Hub and is that we are this summer actually launching called the Data Action Labs, which are the capacity building arm of the Latino Data Hub. And it is an applied training and learning program that is trying to equip the policy advocates, the career government officials, other change makers that are going to utilize the data on the analytical skills, the narrative skills, the action skills. We call it DNA model, data, narrative, action. It is a 4-month training program where we build a cohort community, learning community, and we are developing that capacity. The first one will be launched in Arizona this summer, and it's for community-based organizations. And the idea is that this cohort then becomes the trainer for people in their own organizations and hopefully in their own ecosystem. So the idea is to train some other folks so that they become trainers in other contexts.
And to add on that, we also publish data briefs that humanize data to reflect the unique needs and experience of the Latino community to the broader audience. So a recent example is that our LA renter brief, which explored the housing cost burden of Latino renters in LA County across different Latino origin and educational attainment, and various other factors in light of the end of the COVID-19 rent protection in the city.
That's remarkable. For the Blackwell Data Center, is there anything specific that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think like this is a tension that we constantly feel at the Blackwell Data Center. Right? Like when the center launched, we thought putting data disaggregated by race out to the public will be good enough. But like through our work like with cities, we found that like we had to like work closely with cities and develop use cases. Cities are like very familiar with performance analytics data, but like with data disaggregated by race, I think this is still something new for like cities and city departments to wrap their heads around. I'll give a quick example. Like we've been working with one partner city where we had to go the extra mile, look at some of the city department's priorities, and then like actually map our data to the priorities that the city is working with. The rent burden example that G just shared was also something that we have data on, and the community development aspect of the city that we are working on found that data actually very helpful to identify zip codes within their city to target programs to help with housing assistance.
Yeah,
Thank-
sorry, Erica, tacking on to that really quickly. So the data center, we have scheduled webinars that are open to the public, where we deep dive into some of our tools. We have office hours, and we're also building tools that can really help with the onboarding. So I very quickly showed that little tooltip, for example. That tooltip was a direct result of people asking us, well, what does a social vulnerability index mean? And how do I use it? Right. And so I think that all of those small things add up. And those are definitely ways that we're also, again, tackling a little bit of the literacy piece, but also just kind of in the moment, making it easy for people to understand what does this data mean and how can you use it. And yeah, and if folks are interested in any of those, again, that information is on our Connect page, and you could also create an account to kind of get advanced features.
Great.
If I may, I want to add something because I love what you just said, Jay. And I think it's one of the reasons why we are partnering is also to share the feedback from the users amongst ourselves. Because there's tools, for instance, like the tooltip that you mentioned, Jay, that both of the teams are trying to create these guiding tools for our users. How do we present the data in a much better, easier way? And the tooltip is one of the things that we learned, for instance, from the Blackwell Data Center. There's other things that from our interface that we want to share expertise and not be reinventing the wheel. So send us all your feedback as users.
Well, likewise. So sorry, Erica, we're going off script, but
Yeah.
likewise. when you all mentioned data briefings, right? So data briefings have been on our mind, and I'm like, of course, right? So I think that even this exchange, this moment that we're having is like, this is just a small microcosm as far as like what the bigger ecosystem looks like. Like there's enough for all of us. There's, the pie is big enough. And if we share resources, if we partner, we go further. And so, I mean, yeah. So we don't have to bang our heads trying to figure it out, because you figured out a piece, I figured out a piece. Let's put it together, make ourselves both better.
Yeah,
All right,
I
sorry,
mean,
Erica, back to you.
no, this is all about you and the folks on this call. So the only thing I want to do is make sure that we create some space for their questions, and they are coming in. You guys can't see this, but the Q&A is popping. Like there's a lot going on here. I want to talk about the data standards piece, and someone asked this question. Rodrigo, you mentioned that we have municipalities, places that aren't actually even asking questions about race. This whole erasure of communities, and the idea that we aren't a monolith, to your point, G. So much is really hinging on the disaggregated data. What are each of these platforms, these organizations? And I want to say, like, the platform is the platform, and really available for anyone to engage with. But everyone on this call should know that there are full organizations behind these platforms. And it's important that we say that, because these aren't just tools. These are platforms, these are organizations that you are engaging with, that are constantly thinking about how we create the support and the resource to make your jobs easier. So I want to talk about, driving standards for disaggregated data, and what you guys are doing to make sure that we're constantly getting what we need in terms of better data collection, better dissemination of that data. What are each of you doing to make sure that the standards are higher and adhered to as it relates to disaggregated data? And maybe we'll start with the Black Wolf Data Center.
So I can take this one. Like at a high level, there are a couple of things that we are doing. Like in terms of driving standards at a federal level, like we've done a landscape research of the various federal committees that are working in defining race and ethnicity standards, and the Blackwell Data Center wants to be part of those tables to influence like better collection of data disaggregated by race. Internally, we are doing a landscape assessment of all publicly and privately available racial wealth equity datasets. And the outputs of those analysis will not only help like federal agencies collect better data, but could also help federal agencies and data publishers also put out like new datasets that have not been made publicly available yet. And like finally, like as organizations, we have a responsibility in like putting out data that is reliable. So even with the current data sets that we have, if we have like data estimates that have high margins of error, if a sample that we use on does not have enough responses, we typically don't put out those numbers into the public platform, just so that we are responsible as an organization with the data that we use. And we have a whole data methodology section on our platform that talks about us being really transparent about the data that we put out for like our users to engage with.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Harsh. I agree on everything that you're doing. It's really exciting. On our end, we have several fronts on this, on data standards. I will highlight one. So we are research partners to a coalition in California that is pushing for better data collection about Mesoamerican indigenous communities. So we are starting with first supporting legislation in California. There's currently a bill called the Latino and Indigenous Disparities Reduction Act, Senate Bill 1016 in California. And that bill aims to uncover health and related disparities by requiring the state departments to collect and disaggregate more detailed data about different Latinx communities and Mesoamerican populations, who are indigenous populations that live in the current United States, but that come from the countries of Latin America. So that's just one of the examples of that data advocacy. I think that sometimes we're doing all of the above, like we're doing also the type of advocacy at the federal level, but many times the federal level needs to see some examples at the state or local level. And so in that way, we're trying to do both and also see places and issue areas where there are some openings where we can do more direct advocacy to use them as examples later.
Thank you. So we're getting a lot of questions in the chat about, I would say, the geographic granularity of the data. So folks want to know what level is the data on your platform, and what geographic level is it currently? And then I guess also coupled with that, what sources are you using for the data? People are guessing census, American Community Survey. So if you guys can just clarify geographic granularity and the sources of the data. And Rodrigo, Rodrigo or G, how about I start with you guys?
I can start. So the Latino Data Hub mostly use the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey as the main data source. We also supplement voting data from CPS. We chose American Community Survey precisely because it's an annual survey. It's updated every year. It's the largest, most representative sample of the U.S. population. And it also provides the ability to drill down further into like geographies, for example, county. We provide data up to the level of counties. We cannot provide census tract level data just because the micro data that we use in the back end, we cannot go beyond census tract census tract level. And we update the data yearly. So right now we are using the 2021 5-year data. So we plan to update with the 2022 5-year data next month. So if you're interested in getting the latest data, definitely subscribe for updates, and we'll send out a newsletter once the updates are in. Thank you.
At the Blackwell Data Center, we currently have 22 publicly facing data sets. We again ingest our data from a variety of federal agencies as well as some private sector organizations who've made data publicly available. These agencies include the US Census, the Federal Reserve, Housing and Urban Development, CFPB. On the private side, we have data from Microsoft on broadband internet access. In terms of granularity, we have data starting at a national level, data at a state level, county level, and zip code level.
Thank you. We're also getting questions around the upcoming changes to how race is being tracked. Race and or ethnicity is being tracked at the federal level. What are your organization's thoughts about these changes, for your work? How do you think that this will impact your analysis, the storytelling, communication about the population that you're targeting? Just let us know what you're thinking about the changes and how might it affect your work. Rodrigo?
Yeah, so I mean, the OMB changes are huge for Latinos and how Latinos are represented or will be counted in the census, because what was previously 2 questions where they first asked people, are you Hispanic or Latino, yes or no? And then people were asked what their race is. Now it's going to be based on the latest changes that were approved, one single question. I think that even though there are potential benefits of putting it all in one question, I think the changes have the potential also of reducing the quality of data that we obtain about Latinos of Afro and Indigenous descent. Since, tests and other research shows that combining the question and the wording of the question might lead to an undercounting of Afro Latinos. And I want to lift up the work of the Afro Latino Coalition. who stated in a letter to respond to the changes that by listing Latino ethnicity as co-equal as race, Latinos might be, could be inaccurately portrayed as a population without racial differences. We have racial differences across our community, and it's really, really important to highlight those because anti-Blackness is a big force in the United States that impacts Black Latinos, and Black Latinos are Latinos. So that's an important thing. What are we doing about it? So we want to continue being research partners to the Afro-Latino Coalition. We want to continue being their partners in pushing the OMB to make adjustments to the current changes, and then work with multiple organizations in designing the outreach strategies that are going to be needed to make sure that once people answer the census, if the question stays the same, people answer several or select several options and not just one. And also we want to work with different organizations to make sure that the census gets to the places where it needs to get so that everyone gets counted correctly.
Thank you for that. There are a few more questions that I want to make sure we try to cover, and don't worry, whatever we don't get to, we'll send out a briefing and answer the questions in writing. This question I do appreciate and would love to hear your thoughts. How are you engaging the private sector to access new data sources? What potential partnerships exist to incentivize data sharing, and not necessarily just with the private sector, with the public sector? What is your approach to how do you ingest new data that tells a more comprehensive story about our communities? I'll start with the Blackwell Data Center.
That's a great question. I wish there was a hot fix to and an easy way to engage with the private sector. I mean, the private sector collects a lot of data, but often for them, data is a product. It is a way for them to make money out of the data that they collect. So we've had initial conversations with financial institutions to ramp up their data for social good programs that make more of the wealth of data that they collect publicly available. We still have to see how successful we will be in those efforts. We are still a 2-year-old organization. In terms of thinking about, again, how do we continue to tell a more comprehensive story? The Blackwell Data Center has an intersectional view and lens on racial wealth and what it means. We just don't go by the definition of assets minus debt is wealth. So we will continue to engage with scholars, continue to engage with researchers, continue to engage with community organizers to figure out what are the important salient questions that they need data to be answered, and that definitely informs our data agenda in thinking about new data assets to bring in.
So, yeah, I 100% agree with Harsha, especially the beginning part of what you said, Harsha, really resonates. I think it's an important yet slightly trickier relationship that we have with the private sector. One of our important goals is to build capacity for those on the ground who haven't had the opportunity to build their data collection, data data analysis, data presentation capacity. And so when we're trying to prioritize things, definitely our priority is to build that capacity for community-based organizations, for organizers, etc. However, the private sector is incredibly important to engage. And so, for instance, earlier I said what has been one of the challenges since we launched, and I mentioned internal capacity for us to be training others. And so we've been asked by really large corporations, can you come and train our business side on how to segment the Latino customer base better sell our products. When we get that request, it's really important. But when our team has limited capacity, and I get that request, and I also get a request from a 5-person community-based organization, on the ground, that they also need training, we do have some priorities, and we prioritize the smaller organization. However, it's really, really important to push the private sector to utilize their data ethically, and then to think of our communities as, in a very well-rounded way, and not just necessarily as to how to reach them as consumers.
Can I add one thing to this as well as it relates to the private sector? So as it relates to kind of demand for the types of tools and data that both organizations are building, I have actually been approached previously by a large private sector organization asking about a particular type of tool that they would love to see us develop. So specifically, the use case that they brought up is they were thinking through investments, and could we do some sort of predictive tool that allowed them to be able to, with some level of certainty, say, if you create X investment in this type, in the Black community in this type of way, what potential impact could it have? So I'm just bringing that up to say that even the private sector, even though they have the data and sometimes even the funds, they're also looking for organizations like the Latino Data Hub and the Black Wealth Data Center to help them, especially as it relates to social impact and their investment strategies as well. So they're also looking for a lot of what you all probably in the audience are looking for too.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do want to talk about, before we wrap, kind of the ambition to grow the platforms. What are you most looking forward to? But before we get there, there are some technical questions that I think we probably can do in rapid fire. One is someone's asking, how far does the data go back in your repositories? And so Rodrigo, maybe we start, or G, maybe we start with you on just the time piece for your data.
Yeah, right now we offer a snapshot of the current status of the current state of the Latino population. We plan to, in the future, include some trend data when data is available. So stay tuned. But right now we have the current version.
So for all of our data visualizations that show trends over time, we at least have data all the way back to 2007, because we recognize the 2008 recession was an impactful event in terms of wealth in the United States. So we try to provide data from 2007 until the latest year.
Helpful. Are you able to compare indicators, like multiple indicators at once on either of your platforms?
Yes, if you create a profile, and then if you do it through the custom graph, you'll be able to add multiple graphs on top of each other so that you can compare the same population, different indicator, or different indicator, the same geography. There's a lot of ways for you to do that.
And with the Black Wealth Data Center, if you go to the Black Wealth Indicators tool, that is, again, that kind of command center. So that brings together several different indicators, and that is looking at the county versus national. And if you create an account, you can look at a county versus another county across all of those indicators.
So I'm going to reinforce the shameless plug here, because I think we've heard both G and J mention it. Set up an account, set up a user profile so that you can benefit from the robust nature of all that both platforms have to offer. So set up a user profile. Okay, let's transition. I know we're coming to a close. It would be wonderful to kind of hear about plans. I know both of your teams have expansive product lines and product timelines and things that you're always adding to the platforms, again, to make them better resources for practitioners and policymakers. Would love to hear a little bit more about the ambition and the plan for growth, things you want to add for each of your platforms. So maybe the Latino Data Hub, we'll start with you guys.
Oh God, there's so much, and this gets me so excited. So the most immediate is that in May we're gonna, as G mentioned, release the updated data with a few other features, including the ability to combine different counties into regions. For instance, if you want to understand the Latino population along the border region across states, you can select several counties and put them all together and create your own region based on what you need. More medium term things that we're working on, trying to put together data at the congressional district level, and that you should all sign up for the updates also, because that might be out in 2025, hopefully with the new Congress. In terms of data, we're also working with our team at the Latino Policy and Politics Institute has multiple research dockets. One of them is about the environment. And so we have a team that's working on a data tool about the environment. And then on the capacity building side, I mentioned earlier, we're launching the first data action lab this June in Arizona, but we have 2 more lined up already, one for labor organizers in California, then another one that's around data regarding health. And then on the data advocacy side, we're going to continue pushing for legislation to create those data standards so that there's, across the country, better data collection.
Yeah, and I'll jump in for the Black Wolf Data Center. I think, both organizations are very early on. So we are very early into, being in the market and serving you. I will shamelessly plug this data center. This platform was built to serve you. It was built for you to use it. So the things that I am most excited about and most looking forward to is to continue building out our platform in a way that is with community, in community, uplifting the voices within the Black community as well, and making sure that we're not reducing humans to data points. We're both bringing in qualitative aspects, storytelling, content, and the quantitative aspects of the data and the numbers and the facts, and marrying those things together so that we start to have a much more holistic picture of what Black wealth looks like in its current state, but also what it could be, right? Because I don't think that any of us are here because we think the current state is the best place to be, right? So I think that we're here because we want to see advancement. And ultimately, that is what I'm looking forward to for the center. And I know that we have a ton of, features and tools and things that we're experimenting, including getting down to a little more granular data as well. But I'll let Harsha maybe chime in on a little bit of the data side of what's to come.
On the data side, I think this is the year for us to think about research and machine learning in-house. That is something that I'm really excited about. So we are constantly innovating, we're constantly trying new things. Some of them stick, some of them don't. But the idea to try new things, and then the idea and build data tools that serve our users is something that we are excited about. And we are also thinking about bringing in data down to census tract level. So that is something that I'm also excited about, which has been a request since the launch of the Blackwell Data Center. It might finally happen this year. So yes.
Great. A couple of things that I would be remiss if I didn't mention before we wrapped. I think, Jay, what you mentioned and what we've all alluded to in this conversation, we want our communities to be seen. We want our communities to be heard. We really want you to engage with both of these platforms. This is what this partnership is about, our cross-racial solidarity, right? This idea that if we don't have data for Black people, we most likely don't have it for Brown people. We really need to make sure that we are getting the data that we need so that, again, our communities can be seen, they can be heard. This is an opportunity to amplify our voices and to amplify both platforms. If you are part of the media and you are on this call, please help us do that. help us amplify these amazing platforms. Help us get the word out. We're going to have someone put in the chat email addresses. If you want to reach out to the Latino Data Hub or the Black Wealth Data Center, you can email folks to get directly contacted. We can set up demos for you. It's really, really important that we get the word out about these platforms. We also, as I mentioned before, want to encourage you to register for both platforms. So you have the QR codes up here. Please get your iPhones, your Androids out and take a picture and get connected. We are so happy to support the efforts of practitioners, policymakers, journalists who are bringing our stories to light. And so we really appreciate everyone that's joined us today. I want to give a huge thank you to both the Latino Data Hub and the Black Wealth Data Center for all your amazing work. I know folks were really impressed by the demos and that we're just getting started, folks. So again, please make sure that you visit the platforms, that you continue to engage. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.